Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I am Jody Grunwald. This week, my guest is Jennifer Tuma Young, founder of Inspired Girl Enterprises, a company that creates and develops content for books, TV, and film. The Inspired Girl mission is to bring forth content that connects us, brings us together, spreads light, screams joy, and is love in awesome motion. Jenn has extensive training in human connection, courage, resilience, perception, and the brain-body response. She is a published author, has appeared on shows such as Rachael Ray, The 700 Club, Daily Buzz, WeTV, Great Day Houston, and many more. She's been featured in Cosmo, Stewart Living, Huffington Post, Yahoo, Women's World, Forbes, as well as many other outlets. We learn about how a conversation with her aunt just a few weeks before her college graduation put her on the path to temp at a pharmaceutical company. She actually took the lower paying job that the temp agency offered so that she would have the opportunity to meet and greet those who were coming in and out of the organization. Jenn is a relationship builder, and within no time, she was flying on the company jet for training and going back and forth to Kalamazoo, Michigan. She went on to become an entrepreneur, owned a Curves, became a certified professional coach, and then answered an ad on Craigslist that again changed her life, as she had no idea that the ad was to be a coach on the Rachael Ray Show for a season. The lessons learned along this incredible journey are vast. Listen in as she shares the importance of believing that you are magnificent. Jenn is on a journey to help dreamers and believers realize their infinite purpose and live a joyful life of meaning and connection. Go to inspiredgirlenterprises.com for more information. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, stream this podcast on all streaming sites, comment, like, and share, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. The views expressed by all Today's the Day Changemakers podcast guests are their own. Their appearance on the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast does not imply any endorsement of them or any entity that they represent. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and every single week I get to interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who are just busting through the status quo and doing incredible things in their corner of the world or beyond. And today I have Jennifer Young with me. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hey, Jody. Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, I'm so glad we can finally do this. This is very exciting. And so I'm going to do what I always do, Jenn. I'm going to read your bio because it takes a lot to get those words on a page. You deserve it to be said correctly. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to have a great conversation. Sound good?
Perfect.
Jenn Tuma Young is the founder of Inspired Girl Enterprises, a company that creates and develops content for books, TV, and films. The Inspired Girl mission is to bring forth content that connects us, brings us together, spreads light, screams joy, and is love in awesome motion. I love that, Jenn. That's so well written. Also serving as a book Sherpa and boutique indie publisher, Inspired Girl titles cover a range of genres from picture books to memoirs, to self-help, to spirituality, to neuroscience. The Inspired Girl roster includes new emerging and established authors with incredible messages to share. Prior to forming Inspired Girl Enterprises, Jenn, a published author with HarperCollins, worked in the transformational space for over 2 decades, coaching thousands of people, both individually and in groups. With extensive training in human connection, courage, resilience, perception, the brain-body response, communication, and the impact of our environment on our behaviors, Jenn holds certifications in life coaching, transformation coaching, wellness coaching, and kinesiology?
Kinesiology.
Yeah, I don't know why. Can't speak today. And I've studied at NYU, Life Coach Institute, Monmouth University, Cleveland Clinic, and more. Also, Jenn has appeared on shows such as Rachael Ray, The 700 Club, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News. Her tips have been featured in outlets such as Cosmo, Stewart Living, Huffington Post, Maria Shriver, iVillage, Gannett, Yahoo, Women's World, and Forbes. And on a personal note, Jenn loves coffee, and I have my coffee right here. You have yours too. Anything with peanut butter. You can spill anything by looking at it, just like I am klutzo extraordinaire. I'm okay with admitting it. And she lives for her kiddos. She loves her husband, and he is the total yin to her yang. And there's just so much more that I want to go over. But Jenn, wow, what a bio.
It's funny when you read it like that, because I'm like, who's that?
Most people. So I always ask that question of my, those that are guests, because I'm like, what does it sound like to hear it on the other side? Because when people read mine, I'm like, who is that too? It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
And
layers in a life. I mean, there's ups and downs and mountaintops, valleys, and it's kind of a little bit of a highlight reel, I guess you can say, of those things, but there's a lot of layers in between that stuff.
I'm so glad you say that, because I think that's something we don't talk about a lot after I do read the bios, is that yes, all of those are all of it's the highlight reel, but in between those layers, and I love the way you said that, are the hills and the valleys in order to get to those things written on the page.
100%. I mean, every mountaintop was probably followed by a deep valley, and every valley that you get through led to another beautiful mountaintop. So, you're reading 25 years of my life, but there was all of this in between that I needed to happen, that God needs us to go through to, I feel like every valley led me to surrender more and more and more, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes a total amount of sense. And that's what, there's two words I say on the podcast all the time. If we can lower our judgment and share our vulnerability, we can connect on such a deeper level as humans. And I know connection is a big word in your bio. It's my whole platform as well. And I feel like the reason we don't do that so well all the time is because with the fear of judgment gets in the way so much, right?
100%. I mean, I think that we are, we feel like we'll be judged more, but the fact of the matter is we actually connect more when we show those broken pieces and those rough spots. I mean, I kind of laugh because what taught me that lesson the most was actually a rocking chair, believe it or
not. Okay, now I have to ask how.
Well, we had these two rocking chairs. This is years ago, probably I would say about a decade ago. Okay, so I'm a little older, but not as where I'm at now. So I'm not in my 20s. I'm in my later 30s, and I was going through a time, whatever, and we had these two rocking chairs on our front porch. Long story short, they got weathered, from being outside. So I don't know, I went to the Home Depot and I got a can of spray paint, like colors, and it says covers everything. And so I sprayed the rocking chairs, and like the color a couple days later just literally like slipped right off of them, and I was like, wait, I should know better. You have to scuff up a chair before I should have known that, because I've done it before, but I forgot. But I think I had to forget that because God had to remind me that you really don't connect with people on the surface. You have to kind of dig deep and show those vulnerabilities, because that human connection isn't about what's bright and shiny. It's about what's rough, weathered, and worn, and that we can go through that and celebrate those mountaintop moments together. But we've also all been through the valleys. So it kind of was like, oh, that's why I forgot, because I needed this reminder. I was in a valley moment and really just was needing to remind myself that this is what makes me, human and real. And this is what makes me connect deeper with other people.
Yeah. And the fact that you were able to be open to that message, right? Because you were present in that moment. So one of my changemakers always says, being present in the present is a present.
Yes. I love that phrase.
I know. And I share it at Fred Wozniak. I share it all the time, because I believe that when you hear things like that, it's important to share, because I'm learning from it. Others need to learn from it. And so
you can't hear, I mean, what I've learned anyway, and I keep having to relearn, because we're in, I'm a Jersey girl. So, being present in Jersey, sometimes we're whipping around the room, right? But
yes. Just yes.
I know this is an international show, so people are like, where's Jersey? You will know, Google pork roll.
That's great. I love it.
But the truth was that, with the being present, again, years ago, I was having one of those moments. My husband was at work. My daughter was at school, and my son was just a couple years old. And I won't tell the whole story, but the long story short of it was that we were driving and I was spinning. My mind was spinning anywhere but here. I don't know if you've ever had those moments where
Always,
even,
every day.
like you're like, how am I getting where I'm going? Because my mind is thinking. And I realized, wait, just you have your beautiful, precious son in the car, just sing with him, turn on the music loud, be present and sing. And so I got out of the spiral, I turned the music loud and I started singing with my son. And all of a sudden, it was like this voice, like as clear as day. I heard it like I heard you talking to me right now. Look left. I look left. Now I'm going on a pretty fast road. I glance to the left and I see a man laying in the grass. And I'm like, oh my God. So I turn the car, like I go into a little alcove. I trying to get over, but I see car after car whizzing past. Finally, one other car pulled over. I pulled behind the car. She ran out to check the man. I called 911. We got him safety. The ambulance came. I looked at the other woman. The only other car that stopped was this amazing woman who is a yoga teacher. Now you talk about who is the epitome of being present, people, when we do yoga and we connect.
Of course.
It was that God moment that God said to me, look, you were present and you heard my direction. And the only other person present that was there that's pulled over was a yoga teacher. So if that doesn't tell you the power of being present, and I think of that all the time, that I would easily have been one of those cars whizzing by, easily. But it was in that moment that I was connecting and made a conscious choice to be present. God reminded me of the power of being present, that you hear the direction so much better. And so I try to remind myself that as much as possible, especially when I don't know where to go. My head can drive me a million different places. I have to go into the wisdom of my heart, that God, divine, whatever word you want to call, I call God, wisdom in my heart. And the only way we can plug into that power is through the present moment.
Absolutely. And whether it's God, the universe, whatever anybody feels that is their higher being or whatever.
Exactly.
Is, is it, and you gave me chills. You give me chills with that story, because I feel like when you do turn on and not go through, I always say we live life, a lot of us, including myself, on cruise control. Just like when you talk about how did I get there? Sometimes I have no idea how I got to a place where, and I wasn't using cruise control, but my brain was on cruise control.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think that is so important for people. Take a moment, really be with yourself and be in that. And that if you weren't in that moment, turning up that radio, listening, how many times do we say, forget it. I don't know why I'm getting that hit of intuition. We ignore it. I think that this is, what you're sharing is so important. So anybody who is listening today and moving forward from this time that this airs, if you're getting a hit of intuition, because that's what it is, higher power, something internal, hey,
listen to the direction, because it really, and you can always feel in your body where the direction's coming from. So if you really are thinking something, overthinking, it might feel like, oh, I should do that. The shoulds are usually the mind, the head, trying to direct the ship. The clear, just words are really, I believe, the divine higher power source, intuitive direction. And sometimes we have to listen to the shoulds to get to the fall, to get to the lesson. So don't beat ourselves up if we don't, we follow our head a little out of control. You know what I mean?
Right.
Will lead you anyway. So, it's like we do our part to be present, but we're human beings, we're not, as far as I know, not walking on water. We're here, we're grounded, we're in the human body, we're having this human experience. And so we will have times that our head drives the ship, but when we really listen to our heart, those directions are very clear.
Yeah. The ideal recipe is the mix, somewhere in the mix. Even vocally, when you hear about vocalists, right? There's a part where they have the high, the low, and then the mix.
Yes.
Is about finding the mix between your heart and your head. And I always say, stop shooting on yourself, because that's the one thing. And a lot of people, not just me, a lot of people say that, because good ever came out of the other side of, I wish I shouldn't have, or I should have, because you can't go back in time. You can't, you only have now and the future if you make that decision. So I love what you're saying. I think it's also great. So I'm excited to talk to you because I want to learn more about where this all began, all this spirituality, all of this, being present. So you gave your age away. And so knowing you're in your late 30s, I'm assuming
late 40s.
Late 40s. Okay. Like I was like late 40s. Oh, Mom, I hit the pinnacle age. I'm out of the 40s now, which is I'm in a new club. And oh yeah. And so with that being said, though, it's like it takes us time to learn. And I know, and when you think of, if I only knew then what I know now, but I feel like, certain ages, they happen for a reason. It's that you had to learn that. You had to go through that. I got to go back for 1 second. So I know I'm going all over, but I need to go back for something because it was something you said about the bio. And don't you almost wish in your bio you could say, but I had to go through these 10 things to be able to write this one thing down? Because really the real learning and the thing that counts the most should be where we were and how we got to those places, not just where we ended up. Right?
And I have different versions of bios through the years. You have people help you write them and different things like that. And I remember writing one and it was years ago, and I forget who said it, but they were like, but there's no, like, it didn't get to the point quick enough because I'm a words person. But I do think that that those in-between parts are so important. And in many cases, it is hard to surmise in a couple of sentences. That's why I laugh, like we're in a digital world. I love the real human connection. Not that digital isn't, but it feels different when you have to fit something in 20 characters or less. It's like my partner in my business, my other yin to my yang. I always find yin to yang. She laughs at me because we'll have the same, like, we got to post about this. And she'll be like, in a couple of words, like, girl, join me here. And I'm like 10 paragraphs later, get to the point already. But
that's me. And that's like, and we have that in common, that connection, that word connection. So we feel like, I'll speak for myself. I feel like in order to connect, I need to share my heart. I need to share parts of, and all the pieces that led up to it. And everybody's looking at me like, you can't do that on Instagram. It's things much more condensed. So yep. But that's why you have yin to yang. And that's exactly, we always balance. I'm the spaghetti at the wall person. And I always need balanced by the more detail-oriented person. So
sure.
I'm so glad that my sister and I have that. But in my other world, I need a yin to my yang. So, so Jenn, tell me, I want to learn a little bit about young Jenn and about, where you started, where you lived, where you grew up, and what kind of child you were. So we can kind of like go on this journey with you on how you got to where you are today. Other people connect when they hear that.
Sure. Well, I grew up in New Jersey, in central Jersey. The joke is that I've been writing since I could hold a pen. Like, I've always been a words person, writing poems and short stories literally since I can remember. I was always one of those kids that was like, I don't know. I wrote a poem, I believe I was in 4th grade, about, there was like a path by our house. And for whatever reason, I was afraid of the path. And so I wrote a poem that I was walking down the path and something was really scaring me. And I don't know what it is. Is it a knife? Something stopping me from my life? I don't know what it is. Oh, now I'm getting near. I know what it is. It's fear. 4th grade. So I think that, I don't know. My mom's like, what were you like? And at the time, I think it was literal fear, like, of this path for whatever the reason was. And, it was, a little alley or whatever, but as I got older, I started to learn about fear, like not physical fear, but the fears that stop us, and really diving into that. So it's funny how those were things I was writing about, dreams and him being a dreamer. In my 8th grade graduation, I did the speech for our class, and I, shared a story how I was Jolly Green Jennifer. I'm very tall. So my first, I'm not very tall anymore. I will say, I don't there are people much taller than me. I'm 5'9", so that's not
Yeah.
fair.
Oh, no, not at all.
But when I was a kid, I stopped growing in 6th grade. So I've been 5'9" since 6th grade.
Okay.
So in kindergarten, I was the tallest kid in the class. And my mom put me, God bless her, in green knee highs, a green kilt, and a green V-neck sweater. I wish I had the picture to show. I should ask her if she has it. And I was literally like a whole head taller than almost every other kid around me in the line for the bus. So I guess when I got into the kindergarten classroom, the desks back in the day had that like little rounded side where you kind of slide into them. I guess I was, I don't know, scared, because if you just straighten your legs, you can get out of it because it's not like you're attached. But my knees got stuck to the top of the desk because I was so tall, and everyone freaked out because I was freaking out, and the teacher ran to get another desk. And, I was able to obviously I got out, but
right.
Everyone looked at me and called me Jolly Green Jen from that point on. I was so tall. And, I laughed. It was done in funniness, but I did learn at a young age, about how that feels to be stand out in a way that is funny to people.
Yeah.
It did hurt me, even though they were my friends and everything. So I think that was something that when I did my 8th grade speech, I did try to talk about, the power of kindness and, even though we all have differences, they could be beautiful, and that we all have dreams in our heart. And my mom's like, where did that come from? I'm like, I don't know, but I guess just the learning that we have even as children. And to this day, I write about fear, I write about dreams, and I write about kindness. So it's not, and I didn't consciously think of that until more recently when my mom was pulling out some of my old writings and we were talking, and I was like, wow, I've been writing about that stuff.
It's so funny, every time I talk to a guest, I remember things from my own childhood, right? Because it pulls out. And that's what's the great thing about this. When you talk about when people listen, they can relate it to themselves. And I just started thinking about poetry that I was writing as a kid. And I thought they were songs, right? Because, 3rd, 4th grade, I thought,
yeah.
And I think that writing is such a way to express yourself. And a lot of people, time is of the essence, as you know, and as you said, brains are spinning and we're all spinning. So if you can't get, I'm finding for myself, if I can't get it to paper, if I can't get it into a computer, I'm using my voice recorder so that I can do it later. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but that seems to be the way that I'm trying to do it, as I want to write, but I don't have the time to click the button, silly to write. I actually wrote, we all can't even find time to type the things that I want, talk about. So I do it on my voice recorder. Do you ever do that?
Me personally, I'm pen to paper, like physical paper. Sometimes I wish I typed it out because I have like pages and pages of handwritten stuff, and I'm like, oh, how do I get? And then but I do think a lot of people I work with, that is the best way for them to get it out because of the time factor, because you can do it and speak it out. And I think whatever way the words need to come out of you, to get them out of you is important. So I do understand that it works so well for so many people because of the time. And, I occasionally I was doing videos when something would pop in my heart and I would be like, oh, I have to share this. But then I found my videos were very long and not social media friendly, like 30 seconds. My video was like 22 minutes. I'm like, what? This is not good.
We have that in common, by the way, my friend. We really do. We totally have that in common. I'm trying so hard to get out of that. Last night I did one of those voice recordings. And it was 6 minutes. It was over 6 minutes. This was before I went to bed. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This is 6 minutes. I'm like, I didn't even know time was going by that fast.
Yeah.
So fear was in your writings, and you were able to identify it, which is really incredible and amazing. And I am sorry about what people called you. And I think I was bullied as a kid. I think that we all have our moments of dealing with that. It's just sad that.
I mean, I look at it, I don't feel sad. I feel like it actually helped me so much understand compassion in a different way. So I kind of feel grateful because, because had I not, I mean, listen, by any stretch of the word, I've heard of all levels of bullying and things like that. And I don't want to miscategorize, but it was a moment that hurt me as a child. And that's why I have great gratitude for it. If it was something that was like ongoing and maybe I couldn't speak to that, but I look at, I mean, I had moments where people would make fun of either my height or, my weight at different points. I've been every size from 4 to 44 practically throughout my life. So, I've had different points of that, but I look at it with gratitude because I feel like we're humans, so hurts happen, but they always hurt my heart for someone when it does. So I think it gave me a little compassion towards that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And these are those things that we go through and we learn from, right?
Yeah.
They leave a little bit of a scar, and it happens. But I do agree that the word gratitude, when utilized and really felt, not just said because you're expecting something on the other side of that gratitude, it's just pure, authentic gratitude for something. It is that whole what goes around comes around. And the more you can give in kindness and the more gratitude you can have authentically. I say that because there are some people that don't do it authentically. I'm saying that authentically. That just then you can see the good in even the bad that happens.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah. And I think that, it's interesting because like when you say like authentically, and there's some people that don't have it authentically, I always, my heart is always feeling like if somebody isn't authentically, there's a mirror there. There's something going on that a mirror, a reason, a lesson, something, because I don't believe, I mean, and maybe this is the dreamer in me or whatever, but I don't believe that anybody would ever go at anything intentionally to be inauthentic. That's against who we were designed, magnificently made to be. I think that we've been given jars around our human potential and around our awesomeness from the time basically we're born in some ways. And those jars create very limiting beliefs about how to be successful, how to be this, how to be that, if I'm this. And so those jars create those inauthenticities, I believe, because people are just trying to do whatever it is. I went totally on another tangent, but when you said that, I felt that in my heart. It's important to acknowledge that if somebody is, because it's easy to look at somebody and say, well, they're not authentic, but I'm like, well, I think that there's something really beautiful and deep beneath that inauthenticity that needs to be uncovered. I don't know.
Yeah. I have to say, I call that the armor that something.
Yes.
Something happened along the way that they had to put the armor on. And we do that sometimes with our titles to protect us, right?
Of course.
We don't show. And so then we may not show our authenticity because we have that title and that armor and we're supposed to be, I say, quote unquote, supposed to be somebody else than who we are, right? If you're a leader, you can't, some people believe you can't show weakness to your team. And they, and those kind of things are society driven.
Yeah.
And that's when we don't show our vulnerability and because we're afraid of that judgment, and it all just is a cycle that just goes round and round.
Yeah. I love how you said the armor, because that really is, I believe there's like really love is all and everything is love or just a call for love. So every human behavior, I believe, can be described by that. So if somebody is, and of course we have to balance that with boundaries, healthy boundaries. So we're not creating ourselves susceptible to abuse because of somebody's, armor per se, but having understanding and setting standards for behaviors that you tolerate are two very different, distinct things that we have to do. Because it's easy when you have that really understanding, it's easy to go the mushball way, but you also need to have that standard of behavior because then you can be a teacher for them as well.
Without a doubt. Absolutely. And that is everybody we meet is either our teacher and our student, depending
Yeah.
on where we are in the conversation, I totally believe that. We're on the same path. I love it. I love
Yeah.
this type of conversation because it is, it's so important, and to be able to share things like this for those who may be listening, who are feeling, that they can't be authentic because of, and also letting them know that you can help the armor can melt, slowly, or we can peel layers off, whichever way you want to look at it. But
Yeah.
I want to go back to your incredible journey and talk a little bit about, so you grew up in New Jersey, you school, and then graduated, and then where did Jenn go from there?
So I first went to college out in York, Pennsylvania. I was, about 4 hours from home. So I thought I was like my first big, away from home experience. I was there 2 years and then transferred back into Monmouth University, and that's where I graduated from. And I went through a time in college. I was seeking, always deeply trying to figure out life in some way, I think. And so I would, listen to the Indigo Girls, and I would listen to all my music, and I was just, I don't know if seeking is the right word, but that's how I felt. Like I was going through a period of just trying to find, what was real and what was, I always had faith in something. I wasn't sure what exactly it was. I mean, I grew up Catholic, in the Catholic Church, but I don't know, I was going through a seeker phase, and I mentioned, my weight. I had yo-yoed a lot in my lifetime, always feeling like that's why, when we talk about things like our worth and things like that, I will always say, don't attach that string to your worth of your weight. Because for me, I was always feeling good when I was one size and feeling bad when I was another. And I was attaching my feeling and my worthiness to that number on the scale. And that's crazy because I'm the same person no matter what my weight is. But what I do feel like is we nurture what we love. And when we're not being kind and nurturing to ourselves with physical fuel, mental fuel, heart fuel, there's something to explore. So I had a lot of exploration in that.
Wow, that's very powerful. And I can't tell you how important it is what you just said to somebody who is dealing with that yo-yo of weight. I myself have been between, weights, and everybody values their weight in a different way. And it is true. You love yourself and excited to look in the mirror when you're X. And then when you're Y, you're like, oh, I don't want to look in the mirror. But you are the same exact human in there.
And that number is we're assigning a value to it. I think the strings, numbers to me have always been a thing. I think because I'm a words person, and I don't know if God has been showing me different lessons with things and using numbers as a way to do it. But those strings that we attach to our worth don't just go with the number on the scale. It goes with the number in the bank account. You feel great about yourself when you got money in the bank. You feel terrible when you don't. Strings that we attach to our worth with our relationship status sometimes, or being a mom. I mean, my children are my world. They're 13 and 15, about to be 14 and 16. And they're my world. But if I put all my worth in them, it's unfair. Then they go to school and then I feel worthless. And it's hard not to, because that's what, we live for these things, but we shouldn't attach these strings to things. I'm worthy because I have this car. And I don't think it's conscious. It's very subconscious. I don't think people say that out loud. I mean, do we? I don't think so.
I hope not.
It's very like this very subconscious feeling. But I learned to become aware of when I was feeling less than and what was the cause of it. It was never the surface cause, by the way. It was never the number in the bank, the number on the scale, the relationship status, but that would be a catalyst for my own self-discovery. So what about this is then like, why am I assigning so much to this? And then where do I need to go deeper into my own healing? I feel like we're always in our healing. That's part of the human experience.
We are, especially if you pay attention to it. And if you do that more often than not, you don't wind up with a lot of that baggage that you then have to do a lot of digging and work through many things at one time. So if your number's bothering you, then there could be a lot more involved with that. And instead of beating up ourselves, because we do that so well, we're our biggest critics. Everybody is their biggest for the most part. And why is that? Again, judgment. I still feel like we judge ourselves. That word always comes up. That was really great to share that. Thank you for sharing that, especially for those who are listening who may be struggling with that and see that as a challenge. I think that was really great information. Pam 10 is a leader in IT enterprise solutions and staffing. They are driven to transform their clients' business performances. They do this every day by providing their clients with the best services and products like BizLego, an online community platform, and Colear, a unique learning management system. They also transform the lives of women and children through their associated nonprofits, SheTech, which supports women in and joining the technology field, and Softkin, support organization for kids in need. Pam 10, technology for social good. Go to pam10.com for more information. So you graduated from Monmouth with a degree in?
My graduation was degree in communications. So again, writing, journalism, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I didn't go into that, believe it or not. I did not go into that field right away, even though that was who I was. And that's what I, went to school for. I was crying on Mother's Day in the bathroom at Bennigan's. Do you remember Bennigan's?
Mm-hmm.
Bottom pie, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I do remember Bennigan's. That's funny.
I remember we went to Bennigan's on Mother's Day. It was like a week before my college graduation. My whole family was there. Aunts, uncles, grandpa, cousins, and everybody's excited that I'm about to graduate. What are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to do? What's next? And I had no idea, zero, nothing. I just was so overwhelmed. I went in the bathroom. I started bawling my eyes out, crying. And my aunt came in, my Aunt Jeanette, and I remember she just kind of, she just had such a soothing way about her. And she said, you don't have to figure it all out. Just take like the next step. Like, just do one thing, like whatever that thing is. Don't think about it. And I was like, and she had mentioned, she worked for Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical company. And she kept saying like, the kids do really well in pharmaceuticals. You should go into that. And believe it or not, that was my first job out of college.
Wow. What a change from what you went for. That's incredible though.
Yeah, I went into, so I was like, oh, how do I work for a pharmaceutical company? So I looked it up. I found a temp agency. The temp agency said, okay, you can temp as a receptionist and make $8 an hour, or we can temp you as a administrative assistant and make $12 an hour. So you probably want to do the $12 an hour one, right? And I said, no. And they said, what? Why not? And I said, well, who am I going to meet if I'm like in a back room doing because they said it was a lot of filing and stuff, help, like support. Who am I going to meet if I'm in a back room filing stuff? I want a real job. Like, I don't want to temp forever. I said, put me as a receptionist. I want to meet everybody that walks in that door. And they go, what? And I go, yeah. So I temped as a receptionist. And a couple weeks in, I actually met a lot of the executives as they came in. I didn't know who was who, and I didn't really care. I was just trying to connect with people because I knew whatever. One man that I connected with was a vice president for the company. And he liked that I was very, communicative with him and like, just my personality. And I told a lot of people that I was a recent graduate looking, and I must've mentioned it to him. And so the next thing you know, he hired me in a very nice role for the company. And that Monday I was literally on a corporate jet flying to Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Oh my goodness. Incredible.
My friends are like, wait, what? A car is picking you up and you're going on a corporate jet? I had to train in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I was a long distance commuter. every Monday I flew the corporate jet to Kalamazoo, and every Friday I flew home for the weekend.
Oh my God. So what kind of work did you do there?
So that was just for a few months to train. And then I was, oh gosh, I started out in, it was like something with computers. I was this computer support, like supporting the sales team with their software systems. And like, I didn't go to school for computers. They trained me on everything I had to learn. I had an incredible mentor. And then the thought was that I would rotate into these different positions and kind of learn the company. And then, they had like developmental programs for young executives to become C-suite executives. So you would like learn different aspects of the company. We did some marketing stuff. The last stop I took was in sales. I was a women's healthcare rep in sales. And at that point, I learned a lot, and I was very grateful for the learning. My boss actually that hired me, I was confused why he hired me in the first place, because I was like, I didn't know this stuff. And he literally wrote on a piece of paper, and I remember this quote: "It is your attitude, not your aptitude, that will determine your altitude for success." And he wrote a number of what my salary was going to be, and I almost passed out. I was like, what? Because I was so young and out of school, And so I remembered that. So I had great mentors there. That business wasn't for me in general, but I believe God put me there to learn a lot about, just in general, business, marketing, sales. And then I went from that into owning my own business.
Okay. which is incredible. Is that when you did you do coaching in that business?
So no. So my first business was I bought a franchise. The franchise.
I didn't know that part. Look, I learned so much about my guest.
So at the time, I was not, the new pharmaceutical sales wasn't for me, although I did all right with it. And one of my colleagues as the rep her and her mom had a franchise called Curves. Curves was a 30-minute fitness. As I mentioned, weight was something that I always, beat myself up over and that. And I just fell in love with this concept of 30 minutes, no men, no mirrors, no makeup. And it's not about what, really, it was a very, very baby franchise. Nobody knew about it. I don't know that there was any in New Jersey at the time, maybe one other one open. And that concept just really drew me in because it was like, I felt like it was a safe place for people to nurture themselves in an environment that was, like you said, non-judgmental. And I don't think that people in gyms are judgmental. I think we judge ourselves. Other people are very supportive, because I would go into those gyms. My brother is actually a professional bodybuilder. So I'd go into the gyms with the mirrors everywhere and, all the people that have like the great muscles and all that. And I would feel bad. And I don't think anybody made me feel bad. I just made myself. So I felt like this environment where it was all, hydronic, where it's hydraulic weight. So there's no weight stacks. It's all air and water. So I was like, this felt more comfortable to me. So we went to hers, and then me and my mom decided to open up our own in New Jersey. We were the second open in the state of New Jersey. And then a year or so after, I opened up another one on my own. So we had that one together. And then I opened up another franchise on my own.
Wow. You've really, you've been on such a journey, but an incredible, I feel like I know where you are now, and I want to talk about that too. But I do also think that as I'm listening to you, I can see the building blocks. I really see the building blocks of how things kind of, excelled. But I also do want to bring up one important thing that I always say on it only takes one person to believe in you when you may not believe enough in yourself to help you to launch and really see yourself in the mirror. And that person who said, I love the saying that you said, by the way, I did write it down because that is a saying. He's in you, and now you're flying on a jet, and that is what I'm saying. It's like, and if you pay attention to who's paying attention to you, that really can help you to launch. Mentorship's so important, no matter what.
So important. And I'm so grateful for all the I mean, like literally mentors through every stage. Still to this day, I have incredible mentors. I try my best to carry that on to people and mentor others, because I know it's just so important.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. So you've went through Curves, but I know at some point you did do coaching, and you went around and you went to different schools.
Yeah. Well, it was from working with so many women. And like you said, I really can connect the dots looking backwards, but like going forward, you have no idea. You're like, I'm doing this. But I look back now and I'm like, nothing would have happened had I not done this, had this not, but they're all kind of part of this recipe. I always say we can't bake brownies in our mind. I don't know if you ever like bake brownies. Do you like to bake?
Oh, I love to bake. I hate to cook, love to bake.
Yeah, I love to bake too, but I didn't always love to bake. But, you know, when you bake, especially when you're baking from scratch, like in your head, it can sound really good if you try, if you're creative, and then you actually try it and it's like, oh, that's way too much sugar, or that's way too much chocolate chips, or not enough, or this or that. So you kind of have to keep baking to perfect the recipe. So that, like looking back, it's like, oh, that was all part of the recipe. And some tasted a little sour at points, but that's had to get me to the next thing.
Sidebar, there's never enough chocolate chips, but keep going.
Great. We are very much alike.
Sorry, I had to say that.
It's true. It's true. That's true. So as I was at Curves and working with these amazing women, but so many things would come up for everyone, myself included. The talk about the idea of fear and stress, like I would laugh that I was born like a lightning bolt, and I spent most of my life that way. I was born without a doctor or epidural. So like I came out, my mom was like, my dad passed out. There I was ready for the world. And my mom was in labor for 2 days with my brother. And he was always much slower, very like, and I was always like, go, go, go. Right. Like, so I was spending, even in these early days of Curves, you know, just like a lightning bolt, very fast paced, very this and that. And I wasn't alone. A lot of the women that I worked with in Curves were like that. All of us attaching our strengths to our worth in different ways. I didn't have that language around it, but you know, you feel that sense of like, why are they so sad if they went on this, they walked in happy, they got weed and now they look down, or like you could just see, or like they left happier because, and I'm like, no, it's just this weird, like you're noticing yourself in others. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, I do that too. And like, oh, or like people would come in and they'd be like, oh, I'm trying so hard to get this promotion. I'm working day and night to get this promotion. Please let me get this promotion. And then 2 weeks later, yay, I got the promotion. Oh my goodness. And then 2 weeks later, I'm exhausted. The promotion's causing me so much stress and headache. Or like, it's like, I noticed like this thing. And I did it, no judgment. I did it too. Like we all, and I was like, how do we, this is like this precious life. How do we just enjoy it? Like enjoy the journey of it, enjoy the ups and downs of it, and not like I wanted to know. It wasn't like I had the answers. Of course, I was much younger. So I thought when I started learning, I knew everything. Oh my God, I cringe at how I probably used to talk to people because, you know, you're in your 20s, you're learning all this stuff and you're like, I have all the answers to solve for your life. And I wore that title, life coach, proudly. And now I don't even like the title. I mean, it's in my bio, but I don't even like, I'm like, I gotta change that. But it's what people associate with. But I was in my 20s, like, oh, okay, now I know I have all the answers. And then God's like, no, you don't. Like, let me just keep showing you.
Absolutely. And but on the life coach side, I have the certification, but I also feel like the title needs to be different because it means so much more than those two words. So just
and it's not like, I think that the answers are always in the client, never in me or the person. And so like me, they're in the client, the person that's saying, so it's like, I'm not really like telling you, I should not be anyway, telling you what's best for you because you have your divine wisdom, which is going to lead you the best way. And so like, I think it can get misconstrued, especially for a 20-something-year-old that has this thriving business and all the things. And I bought the car, I bought the sunglasses, I bought the things. I was like that and to be honest, I look back and I go, oh my gosh. I mean, I guess it's fun to have those different experiences and take, whatever, but I definitely thought I knew everything.
It's ego. Somehow that ego
me.
comes in. Yeah, ego just comes in and it feels good. And then, but you see, now you look back and you go, yeah, I think we all had that ego at one time or another. That is, our what am I trying to say? We're just bigger than we think we are. We just feel like we're bigger than we think we are for whatever reason that happens.
Yeah, I think you have to have those. I mean, like I guess what I look at it now is like, if I went into learning to really try to understand myself, my behavior, and other people's behaviors, but more importantly, we have this deep craving for connection and love, because I just believe that love is all there is. But we can, and it depends on, this is very base. There could be a lot of factors, like different people in maybe different areas and it's not one side. Like, I'm from New Jersey, so I know my New Jersey perspective, but around the world and in different cities in this country and around the world, things are different everywhere. So I'm only speaking from my perspective at this time, having dealt with so many people from my area where there was so much emphasis on, the goal, the end point, and then you sacrifice to get to that goal, and then you're happy for a minute, and then more. It was like a whack-a-mole. Like, you couldn't get to the point of peace and joy and the journey. Like, it was always just this constant state of chasing, if that makes any sense.
What's next? Yes. What's next?
Or like, so that's when I started to study, how can I, and I also, the truth of the matter was, there was so much more about food for me and for so many of the clients that I worked with, because it was never about, like, who doesn't know that a broccoli is better than a potato chip? I mean, we all know this. Like, this is not anything, but why am I craving this food? Or what is the deeper source of not nourishing my body well, that I wanted to understand. And I didn't nourish my body on two ways. One was not eating enough, really under-nourishing myself. But I was getting a lot of positive feedback from people that I looked great. So, like, validating these not nourishing choices, subconsciously, I was like, well, I'm fine because, whatever, but I wasn't fine because I wasn't being kind and loving to myself, nourishing. And then on the other side, stress eating or not nourishing in the other way. And then getting different kinds of non-validations that made me feel bad, which put me in a spiral, right? So it was like, I was trying to figure that stuff out too. So it was like trying to figure out joy and trying to figure out the connection to how we nourish and nurture ourselves. And that's what led me to go into learning, into more on the coaching side.
Which is what a great journey, because you were doing it for you. See, that's the key is, when you do it for yourself, you pick up so much more than when you're just only trying to help the outside world. And I think that's very, very valuable. I know on my coaching journey, going to school for it, I didn't know what to expect. I walked in and I was like, this is the most life-changing experience I had ever had. I met the most incredible people and we ripped apart like who we were. And we just kind of went through, the armor came off, flying, it came off. And it's just a very deep and spiritual journey that you go on in order to be able to then help other people. So I think that is so important. So somewhere between that and right after that, you became an author yourself.
Yes.
Took your writing to that next level. Those poems went to a whole new level.
Yeah. So I guess what happened was, as I was learning and taking courses and then teaching people what I learned, I was sharing. I feel like we all love to share what we learn. It's like exciting to do that. And we all need to do that. I think every person needs to share their knowledge with the world, because you have something that somebody else doesn't have that can change perspective and all. So I was teaching classes. I came up with an acronym for the word balance, because balance seemed to be this elusive state of being that everybody would talk about, but nobody knew, like, how do you find balance? Like, it was all about finding balance. I mean, I come to realize there's no finding it. It just is. And it's really not having all your ducks in a row. It has nothing to do with those ducks, you know? So I created an acronym around it, and I started to teach classes around that acronym. And so, do you want me to share it or no?
Yeah, go, please do. Yeah.
So B was for brain dump and breathe. So you could clear your mind and listen to your heart, and breathing helps you tap into that. A is for assess and accept. So you know who you are and what you stand for. You know what your anchors are that keep you centered when life is crazy and out of balance, so to speak, and you can accept yourself and others fully. L, my favorite, for let go and laugh. So you can release what doesn't serve you or the greater good in a loving, kind way. And, you know, laughter is just perfect, amazing, you know, such a great feeling of joy. The next A is for add in and appreciate. So we can make choices that align with that person that we know we are in our heart, and appreciate the gift of life. N was for navigate and notice nature. So we look at life as more of a navigation versus a destination, just how we navigate it. And noticing nature is a big mirror into ourselves. I mean, I learned more about myself by the things I noticed in nature, and that is huge for me. C was for confront and connect, so you can get to the root issues in a loving way. And then, you know, connecting with the world around us, even those that we disagree with in those confrontations. And then E is engage and experience this gift of life, and really plugging in. And that goes back to that present moment plug in. So, and that didn't come right away. That was years of teaching and kind of molding those letters a bit. You know, I think at the beginning it was like brainstorm, and I was like, brainstorming is stressful. Let's brain dump, you know, like, so I like tweaked it, you know, along the way, but that's what it ended up. So after teaching those classes and, you know, having these experiences and being a writer, I started a blog. I was writing a blog. A whole lot of things happened. And then I ended up knowing I wanted to write a book early in the 2000s, but then, you know, I ended up like not knowing how, is basically what it came down to, and spending years, I mean, years trying to figure out how to get a book in the world published. And by the time I figured out how to get a book published, life had changed me and shaped me, or I shouldn't say changed, awakened me. Like it did something different to me than that person that first started to want to write the book.
Right.
That was a journey unto itself.
So when you were thinking of writing the book, and I asked this question almost for selfish reasons.
I love that.
At least I'm honest.
You gotta learn.
You gotta learn. We're all learning together here. When you were thinking about writing the book, did you ever have that moment of who's going to read it? You know, how am I going to put this together? This just seems like overwhelming, or, you know, because I know there's a lot of people who want to write books, a lot of people that wrote books during COVID, and I'm one of those, raise your hand, in the middle of doing it. So that's why I asked that question, because I think it's good to know for those who are in the midst of that and want to try to overcome those fears.
I think that is a very, very common fear, is like, who am I to even write this book, and who would even want to read it, and all those things. I think that, like I said, when I initially had the thought that I wanted to write the book, it was before I was married. It was my book got published in 2012. Probably 2002, 2003, 2004, I thought I wanted to write the book. So the journey at the beginning to when it actually became a published piece of work was really different. Okay. So in the initial part, I was like, I like that person that has all the answers. I have all the answers. I have to write this book. And then as I learned, and I love, there's a quote, and it's like, it's true knowledge is knowing you know nothing, or something to that effect.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know
something to that.
Yeah.
And that I have, that has hit me in different ways throughout the years. But as I was getting closer to having the agent and having the book deal and then getting the book deal, I was like, ooh, I know nothing. Like, what am I doing? And then I was afraid because I knew nothing. I thought it was hitting me in a different way than it does today. So I don't know if that makes sense. But
yeah, that's
so I was like, I guess we all struggle with that in some ways, and there's learning there. There's learning there. I joke that I wrote a book about balance that threw me completely off balance.
But look at that. But that's it. I don't know if I'm saying this. It broke you open in a way. Maybe.
Greatest teacher. I loved it. I mean, at the time, it didn't feel that way. At the time, it did not feel that way. But looking back, I'm so grateful.
Is that book still on bookshelves? Is it out there? Is it on Amazon?
The first book is still on bookshelves. I have reverted the rights, and I have republished it and re-released it under my own imprint, Inspired Girl Books. But the first one, I believe you can still get it. I laughed because at one point I tried to buy every last copy, so it was.
That's awesome. I love it.
But there's my husband. There.
That's okay. This is why I said my dogs were barking in the back.
Yeah.
So listen, this is what happens. So it's all good. This is life. This is real life happening.
Yeah, real life.
So what's the name? What's the title? So if anybody wants to read
the first book, this was sort of a point that I didn't, and this, again, my own, nobody's no blame on anything of the publisher or anything, but I didn't love the title of the first book. It was called Balance Your Life, Balance the Scale.
Balance your life, balance the
scale.
Okay. But that was where you were. See, that's the one thing. And I know you're kind of. I
know it's funny because I laugh now, but yeah, the thing was, and in the first pages of that book, my publisher was amazing. My editor was incredible. And in the first pages, she let me say that I was cringing at the title and that I, believed that we should throw away the scales. Like my belief on that was all in that book to many degrees. But they were looking at it from like a book should have a promise on the title. You know what I mean? Like you should promise something. And what kind of promise is balance is bunk? That's a terrible promise to me. Like you're not, it is. I mean, maybe it is. I was like, but that's the message,
It's a catchy title. And I think for people who are looking for that, it'll speak to them.
Yeah.
But somehow, so I know that I read in your bio, Rachael Ray and all of these incredible. So I do want to touch on that as we're winding down the hour here. And I wanted to just touch on that because people are going to want to know. So how did the whole Rachael Ray thing happen? And you get on all of these different shows.
So I ended up selling my curves because I got married, I got pregnant. I wanted to be with my baby and as much as I possibly could. And, relish in this newlywed new mom life, which I love being mom. I just love it so much. And so I sold my business and I actually thought like, I'm just, going to write my blog maybe, and just maybe speak every now and then. And really this was one of those periods where writing was really the thing for me, and potentially maybe writing the book. I was still trying to figure out how, what. So my husband was going through some issues in his business. He had worked at a butcher shop and was trying to bring more money in because I sold my business. So I was like, maybe I could get a job speaking. It was like, maybe I could speak somewhere and they will pay me because I had done that when I was a little bit younger. So I went to Craigslist of all places, like looking for speaking gigs, right? Like I was like, I'll go to Craigslist. So my daughter was a baby, like my son wasn't even born yet. So she's 15 now. So it had to be like 14 years ago or so.
Wow.
That I went on Craigslist looking for a speaking gig, saw a thing that said like, are you a woman that likes to help women feel good? We're looking for somebody who can speak, on these topics. So I read the thing and I was like, oh, I could speak on those topics. Like, that's what I taught about at Curves and, what are my writings about? So I responded. I got an email back within minutes. The woman asked to speak to me on the phone. I had no idea. I thought it was like a corporate company, like, wellness kind of job or something. I don't know. So she calls, we talk for like an hour. And then the next thing you know, at the end, she goes, so let me just ask a question. Are you comfortable on camera? And I was like, what do you mean on camera? Like on television camera? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I did, when I was younger, I did theater. Like, I don't know. I was trying like, yeah. So, I mean, if I'm talking about this stuff, like, I guess I would be okay. Have you ever been on camera? I'm like, well, I did a video and I did, I had done like little things, but never like TV. So she said, I think you'll be okay. Do you mind coming to New York? I'm actually from the Rachael Ray Show. What? I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, I didn't say that because I was just like, I was stunned at the time because that wasn't something I was looking for. But when she said that, I was like, oh my God. She's like, and we're looking for a coach to bring on the show to help viewers, blah, blah, blah. I went to New York and 2 days later, they were at my house filming. And then for that season, I was Coach Jenn on Rachael Ray, and viewers would write to me and they would ask me questions and I would go and tape segments, a few of them, and like do a lot on their website. And it opened up this different world of sharing messages in a different way because I never, wasn't thinking like that. Then once you have that, you're on television like that, people start to reach out to you to do other television,
Yeah, of course.
And so for the early part of my daughter's life, up until I was 6 months pregnant with my son, I would do these media tours where I would travel for a couple of weeks, but then I would be able to be home for 4 months. So it was like a job, but it was like a couple of weeks away. I traveled all around the country. I went on all different news programs. I shared all different things. And then I would be home for 4 months and then I would travel again, go all around, do the things. I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't even know that was, but to me, it was like, well, I get to be with my baby most of the time. It was very hard leaving, very hard. Then when I was 6 months pregnant with my son, I was on one of those media tours and the flights were like getting messed up. I don't know. I was 6 months pregnant and I was like, it was a lot. Like when you're trying, it sounds, but it's a lot. And I remember saying by this time I had an agent that was helping me do all this stuff. And I said, I don't know if I could travel. And he goes, oh, we'll just do satellite media tours. And I go, satellite media tours? You mean I could be satelliting in? I'm schlepping all over the, like, so for a little while I did these they would satellite me in from New York and I would do like in 2 days, I would hit a bunch of stations and then go home, and be home,
Incredible. And just look where it all started. It's just incredible how it all came about. If you weren't sitting at the front desk as the receptionist at J&J, who knows where you would be right now. It all meshed together. And then
I wasn't crying in Bennigan's, feeling terrible, right? My aunt, see that vulnerability piece, because, I could have been stoic at breakfast, right? And been like, oh, I know exactly what, and went home and cried alone. But I guess when we're open to just sharing our hearts, God appoints divine messengers with gifts, and even though my aunt, didn't know it at the time, but her words led to the next thing that, was so impactful, you know what I mean? And even though that wasn't my forever career, like you said, it got me, it gets us place to place. So
remember today, something that we say to someone can have that same long-lasting impact that we may never know.
God works amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
God, divine, higher power, use whatever word feels right in your heart.
Exactly. And it's about paying attention to it and that vulnerability and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. I do want to touch on Inspire Girl books. It's just incredible what you've put together, from going from a writer, Rachael Ray Show, being Jenn, and Inspire Girl books. So can we touch on that before we end the interview today?
Yeah, sure. So, again, in all those highs, there were a lot of lows too in between. So we just know like that was the way it is. And then, I began Inspired Girl Books, which is now Inspired Girl Enterprises, and books is one component of them. Really began by way of Divine Messenger in 2019, a client of mine who I coached who said, you need to help people with their books. And I was like, what? So I put something out there randomly, and never random though. And my first author is now my partner in Inspired Girl Enterprises, Jessica, who I know you've interviewed, who's amazing.
Yes.
And yeah, and I mean, I feel like I've talked so much. I'm like, I could go on and on, but what it really turned out to be over the past few years is, creating content that I feel says all those things that we, spreads joy, connects us, is love and motion, and having different authors be able to share their messages in the way. And I would never, ever, ever know how to help people do any of these things if I didn't have a book about balance that completely threw me off balance. Like I would never know how to do it. So it's like going backwards, like having that experience with my first book, and then all the, having the experience with the media and sharing messages that way, all led me to be able to help the people that I'm working with today. I call them light workers, because they are, and I feel everyone is a light worker. We all, and it's okay to not always be turned on. We can be a little dim sometimes. That's why we have other people to spread light while we're having our dimness. We light each other back up. We, don't overwhelm yourself with that. You always have to be spreading light. We learn a lot in the shadows too. But
oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. More in the shadows, really. In order to be able to spread the light, we need to be in the dark,
And find, I'm so glad you said that, because that's so valuable too, is that when you're in that dark, it is searching for that person that can shine the light on you to bring you out of the dark.
There was a quote I just saw, and it was like, thankful for the people that bring the torch when you're in the dark, like those people, because yes, those torch bearers are, gosh, I had so many over the years that just brought the torch when I felt like I didn't know. Between family, friends, strangers, people have no idea that they were that torch bearer for me, because they said just the right thing at line at the bank as I'm crying because my balance is negative $200. You know what I mean? Those torch bearers that just look at you with the kind eyes. We need them, we need them. So
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you are one as well. Not just you need them, but you're doing that for so many. And you may never know who they are, but I know they're out there just from getting to know you more through this interview. We've talked on the phone, but it's so different when you can get to connect, even though it's via Zoom, and hear the stories and see the heart of the human, and push the vulnerability and see the vulnerability. So you obviously said that there have been obstacles, right, throughout that. Is there one that you can share with us that you overcame that was kind of on the bigger side, and that you overcame and went? Now, when you share it, you just are like, wow, what an incredible experience.
Oh gosh, there's many. I don't know if this is the type of obstacle that we're talking about, but the most recent thing I can really speak to is my husband and I spent years, and we didn't talk about it, so it might be confusing, but we spent years building a family business. When at one point after my book, I told my agent, I just want to bake chocolate chip cookies for kids in my town. That's all I want to do. And then my husband's an amazing chef, cook, whatever. He hates the term chef, but he's an amazing cook. And we started a business called the Domesticated Dad. And we grew that business from, borrowing somebody's kitchen to use overnight. And, and then we found a little spot, and then a little better spot in a little different location. And then we had finally got this big full restaurant open in January of 2020. And so we were like, oh, we have this big restaurant, more space, all the things after the years. And my husband had suffered a bad injury just prior to us opening that restaurant. And, he's a consummate worker. He will not complain, but the pain just like really overtook him. And then on top of that, the stress of a pandemic with all of the health crises and the financial crises and the restaurant industry being hit especially hard in that sense. And we just like really putting every penny we had into opening this restaurant because it was in this location. So I remember by August, by the end of July, my husband's like, we're closing. I can't work another minute. I'm in so much pain. We don't have the money, the means to like keep going because we were putting everything. So anything I was bringing in was was sort of my side thing, but God was like, okay, we're gonna, do something with that.
Right.
It just, everything was shifting and it was happening very fast during this very crazy time. So in August, I remember my husband saying to me, that he could not, and I was like, no way, like we were, you wanna, you feel, but like that sometimes the letting go is where you have to have that extreme trust that God knows that there's something beyond this. And that's really hard for our humanness when you spent almost a decade building something and seeing, and it's like, what do you mean? And I'll, I will work, I will do whatever. You don't even have to cook. I'll cook because you're in pain. And it's like, Jenny, like I trust you and I trust that you believe in signs. And if you have a sign that tells me differently, I will believe you. But like right now. And so I'm like, I'm going to show him that the signs are to stay open. And I prayed to God and sign after sign after sign kept telling me to close. And I'm like, no, God, I'm mad at you right now because I don't want to close this business. And then when the third sign came, that was clear as day. I was like, oh my gosh, where are we going? What are we doing? Like, this is what? And August 31st, we closed the doors and I had no idea. Inspired Girl wasn't even really where it is today. Not even like it was growing in a different, we were bringing in authors, but it wasn't clear what I was even, doing to be,
right.
And I'm very transparent. People know this journey. If you follow me, but I was like, so what am I doing? I'm closing a business. I don't really know. I have 2 children. We're in a global pandemic, and lo and behold, we closed the doors August 31st. My husband says to me, like, it's for the best, whatever. Jokingly, I said to him, I don't know why God would have us do this for all these years and all this stuff and all this. I go, maybe I'm supposed to write a book about, like, this is going to be a book. Like, this is going to be a thing. It's going to be a book. We're going to make a movie. It goes, how inspiring is that? That's not inspiring at all. And then they close. Like, what's the inspiration there? And I go, no, I'm going to fictionalize it. It's going to be a fiction book. I told him, we're going to close the business. We're going to lose everything. You're going to be at your wit's end. Something terrible is going to happen. And boom, the biggest miracle is going to come. And he goes, okay, fictionalize it, whatever. Ha, ha, ha. We laughed. We cried a lot. 3 days after I had that private conversation with my husband, nobody was there. See the words, God is always there, but nobody was there. I get a random email, not random, from somebody who says, hey, I remember you're a writer. I'm the producer of the movie Pretty Woman, and I'm doing a Zoom for people who want to turn their books into movies, and I'd love for you to join us. And I was like, what? I was like, I screamed. Next thing you know, I'm on a Zoom with the producer from Pretty Woman. 2 months later, my husband has the surgery to heal his thing. He almost dies.
Oh my God, Jenn.
No, Jody, he almost died. Big miracle occurs where God, I mean, literally like running through the hospital halls where they're telling me like, whatever. I'm sorry. they're telling me that they're going to do everything they can to save his life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Surgery, and he had a hematoma. And by the grace of God, he was saved and he was alive. And that was like, so, I mean, you can't understand, like I was joking around sort of, and then all of a sudden these things, and then this, and I'm still trying to I still don't exactly always know. I'm still trying to put these pieces together. But I look back on that time of like, if we had not closed the business, my husband going through what he had gone through, the stress of that for him, he would never, like, because we would have taken catering orders. We have done this, we would have done that. And we wouldn't have been able to go, like closing it gave him the space that he needed to really heal. And I had no idea. I mean, his surgery was supposed to be a standard surgery. He was going to heal in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? So it was like, and one day I'll go back and really connect all these dots, but I just do know that, we needed to close that business, and the trust of closing it and not being that stubborn, I'll show him, gave my husband. And now by the grace of God, he's so much better. I mean, every day it's, a healing process, but.
Wow. I just need to leave it in that minute for a second. That's just a truly incredible story. And then you get a call and all of this, it's just crazy.
The call to me was just what it was, and, it was just in that moment. I wrote this to the man that sent me that I sat on the Zoom, and he still mentors me to this day. But right. All it really was to me was just a sign that, there is something else. And then that gave me a vision for Inspired Girl Enterprises that I'm not saying like, nothing's like a ping pong back and forth, but what it did was it gave me a vision for these authors that I'm working with, that their books and their messages are things that the world needs, and that God was listening, God knew, God was there. And like, I don't know, again, one day I'll really connect the dots, but it did open up the vision in a greater way. By the end of 2020, I knew like there was something with Inspired Girl that I wasn't thinking of before, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does. And what is your husband's first name, if you don't mind me?
Michael.
Well, we send our thoughts and prayers for his continued health and recovery and wellness. But I have to say, like, he heard it. He needed you to agree to it. He needed you to give him the validation that it was the right thing to do. Like if you tell me different, like, I love what you said, because that's partnership. That's real partnership in a relationship. And then for you to just listen and say, oh no, everything coming to me is saying we can't keep going. And then obviously all for the reason that he needed that time and what you went through. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. He needed that healing time, and that we grew even like that day in the hospital. And I know I'm talking so much, but that day in the hospital, we had received messages from so many people. And so prior to that, he was down because he had felt like, he closed the business. He was down on himself. Of course, we were down. I was down. He was down. But this miracle that God gave us, it was like open our eyes in a whole different way about the gift of life again. And then we talked about every person that sent a message. We spent after he was out of ICU and like he, in the recovery. I've been married for how many years, and I'm learning things about him that I didn't know, because this kid he played baseball with sent him this message, and he told me the story. And this girl I grew up, and we just connected about what really matters the most is the human connection. And we just spent, and then just God was just with us, so.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful to hear that. And it's not a story. It's real. You know what I mean? It's real life. It's what people go through, and it's important. We learn from that, but that's the key. I think when those things happen, it's like second chance to see things through different eyes. Because I had a near-death experience. I know what it's like to look at life differently because of that experience. It's a whole different world. And we don't have to wait until something horrible happens to go after and do the things we love. And that is my other message that I always share with people, because that's what I was doing until those things happen. Then you're like, oh no, I really need to do that thing that I want to do. But it takes like that horrible thing to happen and bring you there. So we wish your husband, healing quickly, and whatever that next journey is, it's going to come. It'll absolutely come. So Jenn, last question. I could talk to you for about 7 hours. I can tell you that right now. No, I could. I know.
I'm talking so much.
No, but and I want to invite you back because I want you and Jess to come back and talk about SOAR, because we didn't touch on SOAR. So please, I know you're going to have an event coming up that we'll talk about. I don't even want to mention it just yet because I know it's coming up in the fall, but let's get you both back on if you're okay with that, so we can talk about that and advertise that and share the incredible empowerment that is involved in all of SOAR. But I do have one last question for you. I ask the same last question of every single guest. It is, what is the footprint you are creating now that you want to leave behind?
What a good question. The message that just drops into my heart all the time is that God just reminds me, and for anybody, that they're just magnificent and that they have so much inside of them. And so I hope that imprint that, this crazy, beautiful life, that you live it to your fullest, and that you know how precious and loved you are, and that you spread that love to others. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what comes in my heart.
No, that's the message you want to leave behind. I mean, and it's different for everybody. And that's why I love that question, because I ask the same question all year. Every year is a different last question. And last year,
it's a good last question. It's so
yeah, last year it was, if you knew then what you know now. This year it's the footprint question.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a thought process, because I don't want people to think about not anymore, but we are creating that footprint today, present, that we will be leaving behind when we're no longer here. And it's always thinking about how you can make a difference in the world, in my book.
I think that that's, the life that we have right now, it does leave an imprint behind. I just, yeah.
Thank you today for sharing much. I have to have you back because there were so many more questions we didn't get to, but I definitely want to have you back on. I thank you for sharing your heart with me today and your honesty and vulnerability.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me the space to share. And, I'm grateful for you and all the important work that you're doing in the world, sharing with people these stories.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Jenn, for being a guest. And I can't wait to put this out there to the world for others to hear. And I'm going to end with saying what I always say at the end of every podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday. I'm losing my voice. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what small or large steps are you going to take today to get yourself closer to your goal? Again, thank you, Jennifer Tuma Young, for being a part of the podcast today. And I look forward to having you on again.
Oh, thank you so much, Jody. I appreciate it. And thank you for everything you do.
Oh, thank you. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.